Welcome to Claire's Food Haven, Mum's Mondays. Today we're going to make a lemon tart. It's based on Mary Berry's lemon tart recipe and it uses sweet shortcrust pastry. So for the pastry, we've got 175 grams of plain flour, 25 grams of icing sugar, the yolk of an egg, and we'll need 1 tablespoon of cold water. And that's all going to be whipped up in the food processor. So that's the pastry. So for the lemon filling for the tart, we're going to need 4 unwaxed lemons. And first of all, we'll take the zest off with the zester, and then we'll cut them in half and take the juice out. So we'll be using the lemon zest and the lemon juice of the 4 unwaxed lemons. And then we need 225 grams of caster sugar and 125 ml of double cream and 5 free-range eggs. I'll probably put the egg white in as well that I've saved from the egg yolk that we need for the pastry. So it'll be slightly more than 5 eggs. And that's the ingredients. And then for the equipment that we need, we've got a pie tin with a removable bottom, which I've already greased. That makes it easy for taking the pie out. And we've got some baking paper, greaseproof paper, and we've got some baking beans because we're going to be baking the pastry blind, and the rolling pin. So that should be all we need. So we'll start with making the pastry. And just as a matter of interest, we were looking at this Magimix food processor that I use and wondering how old it is. And there's a little sticker on the bottom of it that says 1985. And it's still going strong. I think it's out of its guarantee now. So first of all, the plain flour. That was 175 grams of plain flour going in the food processor. So now we add the 25 grams of icing sugar. I'll just give that a little whiz to mix it up. And when I was going through the ingredients, I forgot to mention the butter because it wasn't in front of me. I've already cut up 100 grams of unsalted butter, and I've had it in the fridge cooling again so that everything's really cool when we make the pastry. So here's the 100 grams of butter that's already been cut up. I'm going to add that to the flour and icing sugar mix. And now we whisk that up until it resembles breadcrumbs. That's looking good, breadcrumby. And now we're going to add the egg yolk. And exactly 1 tablespoon of cold water. And these measurers are great for making sure that you get exactly a tablespoon. Spoons can be confusing. Some people think a dessert spoon is a tablespoon. Lid back on. And now we'll whisk it again until it starts to come together and form a ball. That's it. You can see that it's forming a ball. And now I'm going to give it a little knead, just a slight knead. I've washed my hands and had a wipe down. I'm going to dust the surface flour. and then we'll get this pastry out and give it a little knead. Now that's kneaded enough. So now next goes the baking paper straight onto the surface, and then in the centre of it the base of the pie dish, the removable base of the pie dish, and then we'll pop the pastry straight onto that so that when we roll it out we don't have to keep handling it, because the problem with this sweet short crust pastry is it's quite fragile, easy to break it, and the less you handle it, the better. So now I'm going to roll it out, and I need to be quite gentle with it. And try to keep the round shape. As it gets thinner, we should be able to see the base of the tin underneath, and that'll give us a better idea of the size we're aiming for. I can see the base now in some places. And that looks quite even, and we've got quite a good overhang on the base. So Mary Berry's next top tip is to fold the edges in so that the base is visible. I think I might need the knife again. And now I'm going to start to fold it in. If I can see the base, then I know it won't get caught on the base on its way into the tin. So that corner would get caught, and that corner would get caught. That corner, and that corner. As I push one in, the other one's going out. So now we'll see if we can get it on the base without mishap. That's good. So now I just need to ease the sides back up again gently, hopefully without damaging the pastry. That's good. So now that it's all up to the top, I'm going to push it into the fluted sides. It looks a bit strange with all this extra pastry at the moment, but it will shrink in the oven. So that's why we don't trim it at this stage, even though it's tempting to trim it. That's okay, we haven't got any holes, and now I need a fork just to prick the base of the pastry Thank you, Alan. There we go. I'm just going to prick the base, not quite all the way through. So that's the pastry case ready for baking. And we'll use this baking parchment to hold the baking beans, the ceramic beans. Because if you put the beans straight onto the pastry, you'll spend a long time picking them out of the cooked pastry, and that's not a good thing. Made that mistake before. There we are. And now the tart's going to go into the oven for 12 to 15 minutes at 180 fan. That would be 200 without a fan, or gas mark 6 for its first blind bake. So while the pastry is cooking, I'm going to make the filling for the lemon tart. I've got the 4 unwaxed lemons. Just take the little ends off. And now just scraping this zesting tool down to get the zest off the lemon. That's the last lemon done. And that's the zest of the 4 lemons. Now I'll cut them in half and get the juice out of them. There we are, that's the 4 lemons squeezed. As you will have spotted probably, there's a fair number of pips in the juice, so I'm just going to get a strainer, and when I pour it into the rest of the mix, I'll strain it to get rid of that problem. So the pastry's had its first blind bake. Now I'm going to get the beans off. They'll still be very hot, so I'm going to put them in this little dish, get them out of the way. And you can see the sides of the pastry are reasonably well cooked, but the bottom is still pretty soft and raw looking, so it needs to go back in the oven for another 10 to 15 minutes to finish off baking, to avoid the dreaded soggy bottom. But at this point we can trim the edges because it's not going to shrink anymore, so we can try and get a neater trim. That's the sides trimmed. And now I'm going to have to see if I can get rid of these bits of pastry. I don't want to take it off the tray because it's still quite delicate, and with it being a loose bottom tray I could still upset it. There we are. So now it's going back into the oven, oops, for another 10 to 15 minutes so that we can get this bottom nicely baked. So whilst the pastry is having its second bake, to bake the bottom, we'll finish making the filling for the lemon tart. So the 5 eggs and the white from the other egg are going in first. Just checking the bits of eggshell. No, for once, no eggshell. I'm going to give them a good whisk. Now lemon juice, remembering to strain out the pips. That was worth doing, lots of pips. And the lemon zest. Now the 225 grams of caster sugar, I'll put this in 2 lots, I think, because there's such a lot of sugar. But the lemons are so sharp, you really need that sugar. And the final ingredient, 125 ml of double cream. And that's the mixture ready to go in the tart when it's finished baking. The pastry's had another 10 minutes cooking without the ceramic beads. We'll have a look and see if the bottom's cooked. Yes, it's well cooked now. So now I'm going to turn the oven down to 150. I think that's gas mark 3. And while that's cooling down, and the pastry case is cooling down as well, and then when the oven's got down to that, we'll pop the filling in and let it bake again. So the oven's down to 150. The tart case has been cooling a little, and so it's time to fill it. I'm not going to fill it completely out of the oven because that can lead to spills. I'm going to half fill it, pop it in the oven and finish filling it when it's safely in the oven. and the tart will now need 30 to 40 minutes in the oven at 150 fan. So the lemon tart's had 30 minutes in the oven and it's probably ready to come out. I'm just going to see if it's wobbling slightly. I think it's got a slight wobble, so I'm going to take it out now. And just see if it's got a wobble. Very slight wobble. So now it needs to cool very well before we take it out of the tin. I'm going to leave it to cool for maybe 15 minutes. The lemon tart's been cooling for about 15 minutes and now I'm going to release it from the tin if I can. This is a tricky moment and I'm hoping that it doesn't break. It's cool enough to handle now. I'm going to pop it on this jar. And just gently releasing the sides. That's it. So now I'm going to pop it onto a plate. So there we are, there's the lemon tart. When the lemon tart's cooled completely, I'm going to sprinkle some icing sugar on the top of it. And I'll cut a piece out then when it's cool and show you how it's turned out. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for following the channel. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Everything is very much appreciated. Every viewer is appreciated. Thank you.